Hello everyone, I am Tacet, and happy Halloween week. We got quite a few festive things going on throughout the game. And of course, we're going over all the event objectives for this week of the Centaur of the Universe week, in which the Auspecia is added to the game. We also got a new troop off of the event key drop table, which we'll be going over in a little bit. It's actually not too bad. Its ability is awful, but its storm seems like it might have some usefulness here and there. But anyways, let's go in order. Let's start with the one of the more useless things. It does come in with a lot of green blues. You can end up upgrading truffle with this too, so if you haven't gotten your truffle upgraded, among other things, you can buy them cheaper for normal, only at 200 glory per arcane. As far as your troop itself, it's pretty useless. It gives some life to an ally, then it removes all blue, red, and brown on the board. If there's ever a team that you're up against that uses a lot of blue, red, and brown, I guess you could bring this thing out. Otherwise, I don't really foresee you using it much. It doesn't have any kind of like mana start. If I like Empower, I could see this thing actually being applicable, because it would almost be like a alternative mercy. Well, maybe not a mercy. Not sure exactly what you'd really compare it to if it had Empower. But I feel like this thing actually would be usable if it had Empower. But its lack of Empower pretty much makes it not usable. And it's going to be staying like that unless they ever change up its perks. But yeah, it has absolutely abysmal traits, so pretty much dead content, unfortunately. We've been getting a lot of pretty bad glory troops lately, but hopefully we'll get some soon. Other than that, as I mentioned, which we'll be going over a little bit too, we do have the new troop in the event key. It is a legend. It's been very rare that we're beginning event key legends lately, but it does seem like they're getting back in the habit, because the last one was about a month ago, and they do generally do them about every month or so. Not as consistent as mythics are, because they're perfectly consistent the first Friday of every month, but they're still around. Other than that, we do have 50 additional souls whenever you go and find a bunch of these battle crashers. There's a bunch of the spooky imps around, a little bit extra souls whenever you find them. Technically, you get even more than 50 souls because it also kills whatever it's over top of, so you theoretically get 51 extra souls. And yeah, it's just a little bit extra. Obviously, nothing like too insanely high, but it's still a decent amount, a little extra as you're just doing battles throughout the week. Other than that, we also have an arena event where you get to draft with him. This is actually the first arena event where we specifically have a troop associated to it, specifically the Spooky Imp. So basically, you'll do a draft and you will already have the Spooky Imp in your team. So that's pretty cool because you can actually determine like a build around it. You could go like Giant Spider or other things that accumulate a bunch of purple and specifically build around it. Kind of like how you used to do with a weapon, but simply doing it with this troop. It does only last today, though. We actually have two arena events today. One that lasts, as you can see, in a little 8 hours there as of I'm recording this. However, it only lasts for today. I know most people will probably be skipping out on it, though. And there's also a weekend-long one, so if you haven't had the time to do any of these day-long ones, you will have an entire weekend to do the next one, as it goes from Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The one today only lasts today, but the other one does last for 3 days. So we do have that. Anyways, as far as the event key drop table, it is somewhat worth considering. As I mentioned, we do have a new troop in it. If I could actually roll it again, it is in here. Here it is, the Orrery. This ends up coming in with a purple-yellow storm off of its final trait. I believe the third double storm in the game. It has Impervious too. Its traits are not too bad. Yellow-purple storm with Impervious. And you get that at the start of every single turn. There are some teams that can utilize this, most notably being Mercy. Mercy converts all purple to yellow and can give you a very big yellow burst, which also feeds into the Orrery itself. But the big concern with this troop is its damage output is very bad. It does half of its magic plus 1 as damage. However, it does get a 2 boost ratio per every single yellow and purple you destroy. This would be pretty effective earlier on in the game when you have relatively low stats and relatively low magic. But the later you get into the game, due to it having half of its damage based on magic, or its damage basically halved, it's not going to be that strong. If they didn't have the half magic thing on this, I feel like this could actually be somewhat viable as a troop, as it's a decent board control option, an okay amount of damage, and has some okay traits to go with it, plus an Impervious. But the fact that they have it based on half its magic, I don't really foresee this being able to be usable in most situations. If you're using this thing, you're using it almost entirely for its yellow-purple storm, not for its ability, so do be mindful of that if you're going to be picking it up. And if nothing else, you can get more Kingdom Stars for the Kingdom, as I believe it reaches 17 stars as of this week. And of course, you still have the rest of the normal drop table. Drop table overall, pretty bad for this kingdom. We do have like Ragnagord and stuff like that, which is okay mana accumulator, but normally outdone by Mountain Crusher. Astral Spirit has an okay Empower, though it's pretty low rarity. Same as Herdmaster, really good cleanse, but there's normally better alternatives. But overall, pretty okay drop table. You basically just want to get your Orreries and then get out. There's a chance you get a Ward Breaker, though. Ward Breaker is an okay mythic that explodes a bunch. He does have a pretty high mana cost and gets hard countered by Submerge, but if you're looking to maybe try to pick up on the mythics, they're okay mythics. Nothing like super meta from the kingdom overall. Anyways, As far as guild-related events, we do have a pretty standard event for the World Lore event, where you just have to take the highest rarity. So here we just want to keep taking the web spinners. You basically want to take it from the highest rarities, then work your way down to the lowest rarities. And as long as you do that, you'll pretty much be fine. There's not really anything too special you need to do beyond that. As far as your team, you do get, it's Divinian Field restriction, and you get additional attack. There are some things that can end up utilizing this, like Hunter's Mark and heroes having specific abilities that can kind of synergize with it. But a lot of things that are oriented towards this kingdom is based on casting, not necessarily based on skulls. So it's going to be a little bit of a clunky week. There are some skull spam weapons that you can use. This one was a super cheap one. We'll be showing the other one in a moment. But it's going to be a little bit of a clunky week overall because you're basically trying to kill entirely off of skulls while not really having too good of skull spammers, because nothing specifically from Divinian Fields has skull spam except for your hero weapon, of course. But overall, it's pretty much just poke 4 skulls win is going to be the game plan most of the time, especially if you can get Hunter's Mark, because that does amplify the additional metal bonus that you have, and they do stack the amount of additional damage that you end up being able to place down. One other thing to go mention, if we go to calendar, where did they actually have it? Oh yeah, they have it underneath this thingy. So you guys may have already noticed this the other day, but they're doing a little calendar thing leading up to Halloween. And while we haven't gotten 100% confirmation yet, it does seem we are getting a new legend on the 31st. It will actually be the first time where the free thing on the calendar system is actually something new. Most of the time, whenever it comes around, I think it's like 50 gems or 25 gems or something, with like 4 of like the 3 lowest rarity of a certain trait stone. However, there's a small chance we're getting a mythic that day. It might be through some other kind of means, but we're definitely getting, oh sorry, did I say mythic? I meant legend. But we're definitely getting some kind of legend on the 31st. If it's from free off of this thing, or if it's by some kind of alternative means, who knows? But there's a really good chance the 31st free is actually a new troop. Hopefully we'll still get 25 gems with it too, but obviously a new trip's still pretty good. That's the only thing that we get from it. It's going to be a 50% undead start, which is okay. The most notable instance of this will be Fair Shra. We'll be able to start with half mana start. He hasn't been able to for a while. He used to have it off of Divines, but now it's 40% start, so now he can have his full 50% again in that regard. Overall, Undead's pretty underwhelming in the current state of the game. Could maybe do some weird true damage teams with it, as there's quite a bit of true damage, plus the troop itself does true damage. But overall, it's we'll just have to see how it pans out. But yeah, it should be right over there. And other than that, they just try to sell stuff for the rest of the time. Most of the offers have been pretty average. Actually, all this stuff's actually obtainable right now, the offer that they're currently doing today, because they did the same one, I believe, last year for Halloween. So they didn't do a new one this time, and they're just reselling the other one just with the standard amount of gems. But anyways, other things. There's still many things to mention. So Tuesday event tomorrow, we have Primal Rift going on. Also, as I mentioned, I guess there actually is an event to mention today. Today is a arena event. I know many people are considering skipping on it, but we do have an arena event with the Spooky Imp. So in your draft, you will end up having a Spooky Imp in it. I'm not sure if this is 100% of the time or most of the time, but you will be able to get Spooky Imp as your draft. It's basically just a standard pick. He does 19 scatter damage to all enemies and either transforms a random enemy into a Wraith, which is actually a bad thing if that actually happens, and or all allies gain 3 magic, which is ideally what you want to have happen. Obviously, you have no control over which one it does. I believe they are weighted evenly, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think they changed it up. Actually, if anything, the Wraith might be actually a lower rate of happening, which I hope it is in this one instance, as it's actually bad whenever that happens. You don't want to transform them into a Wraith, as it resets their stats all the way back to normal, and that would not be good. However, 3 magic for all allies is obviously pretty decent, at least in arena context. Outside of arena, that's pretty underwhelming, but inside of arena, that can definitely add up, especially if something does damage to all enemies or something similar. 3 damage can mean a very big difference, given that most magic is pretty much just low at like 10 and 6 and stuff like that. So giving them 3 additional magic is quite a bit of an impact for them. The scatter damage generally won't really be enough to do much, though. That amount of scatter damage is about enough to kill 1 enemy, and obviously it's distributed amongst a bunch, so not really going to be too powerful in that regard. However, you will be able to build around it by already knowing that you're going to have a purple troop, so you end up doing purple mana accumulation to kind of work into it. The rewards for it and the scaling off it still seem to be the same, though. Starts off with the gem key and then cycles through all the other ones. The most 2 noteworthy ones are the very final last 2, where it ends up giving Ritz, and then the very final one ends up giving a orb. I'll probably be streaming it all tonight. If we do, we'll probably be going to midnight, but oh no, I guess we'll do it. It's a lot just to get so little. but I think we're going to do it, mess around with it. I do advise, if nothing else, at least go for this very first one. If you win one single arena run, you get 3 gem keys, so that's pretty good. Also, if you do it to at least 100 points, if you haven't done it already, there's an achievement for it, and I'm not sure if it shows up on screen. Yes, it will. If I go over to the thing, only, at least on Switch version, or on Steam version anyways, only 0.3%, I think it was, or 0.4? Only 0. So where is it? Only 0.5. I guess it went up. It was 0.4 yesterday. But only 0.5% of people have gotten 100 Valor during one of these events. All you have to do is win Arena twice, and you will have that achievement. So if you want to go get that, you can get it today, or you can get it this weekend. You have 3 days to do it this weekend. So if you don't get it today, definitely make sure to do it on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because you'll have a whole another one. And all you have to do is win 2 arena runs. And even if you fail a couple, you just do a few more, and you'll easily get 100 points. But you get 50 for completing out a single arena run, so worth considering. Anyways, other than that, Tuesday, as I mentioned, we got Primal Rift. Wednesday, we're going to be getting the 2020 Halloween pet. Of course, recently we got the 2018 and 2019 ones. 2019 was last Saturday. 2018 one was like 2 weeks ago or so. And 2021 is coming this Wednesday. So obviously it's cosmetic. You just put it on your shoulder. It does, nothing. But for completionist sake, it is going to be around. It's a pretty interesting pet nonetheless. Little werewolf thingy. Thursday, we do have a class event for Oracle Hero class. Oracle Hero class is pretty useless. You would never really bother using this thing. You do get a weapon for it. That's kind of average, okay, once you get 250 wins on it. But overall, it's definitely a hero class that is worth ignoring. It's pretty much never used. It's supposed to be good with Centaurs and isn't even really that good with Centaurs compared to other hero classes, which is kind of bad. It's mostly because it doesn't really have that good mana accumulation and stuff like that. So overall, pretty dead hero class. Actually one of the worst in the entire game, because it has no like alternative viability. Like some of them, at least they have like some kind of weird team that they could be used for. This thing, it can't even be effectively used with Centaurs, even though that's kind of its whole gimmick, which is kind of funny. Anyways, other than that, Friday we got ourselves the arena event again, as mentioned. It'll be lasting for those 3 days. And Saturday, we are getting a new legend for Halloween. And I believe we are getting it for free off of the thing. However, that has not been confirmed, but it does seem to be the case. That free at the very last thing for the Halloween thing will indeed be a troop that gives 50% mana start to all undead. So that's pretty cool. They're actually doing something nice for Halloween then. Other than that, we have ourselves the Soulforge for the week. I actually did not check this earlier. Hey, how fitting. This is actually one of the instances where like 50% undead start. Like you think like, okay, what could that possibly be used for? Grey King is one of those things. I wonder if they deliberately made Grey King as one of those troops. Just because, gosh, Grey King is like one of the only few viable. Grey King, Ferris Rod, and maybe a few others I'm forgetting of. Maybe like a Draculus and some other true damage. But if there's anything that is benefiting from this half mana start, it will be Grey King. So much so, I might even go get a second Grey King this week. Just because double Grey King might actually be a viable team starting on Saturday. Once this thing can half mana start, he will only require 11 mana. If you're doing this in a game mode where you have enchant, he will only require 9 mana. But even at requiring 11 mana, that is pretty cheap for what he does. He destroys all gems of a chosen color, which of course you can have like 12, 15 of that color. So if you're targeting into one of his and it's a good target for the enemy, you almost gain all of his mana back. All enemies of that color end up taking true damage and are mana drained, silence, and frozen. This is obviously pretty good against teams where you can basically double color wipe them, or if they're a pure color, like if they're all blue, or ideally if they're all blue, purple, or brown, he ends up working the most effective. But any pure color team he tends to be pretty effective against. So be interesting to see how much more meta Grey King becomes. Grey King, even though I personally don't like using him, is a very good troop, and he's theoretically getting indirectly buffed this Saturday. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see, but probably Grey King's highest priority this week as far as things to craft, just because of his viability moving forward due to the thing that's coming out this Saturday. Other than that, Famine, as far as the horsemen are concerned, is actually the best of the Apocalypse troops. Generally, you don't really bother with the Apocalypse troops just because they aren't associated to any kingdom, so they're basically the biggest waste you could ever go for. However, of the 5 Apocalypse troops, he is actually the strongest of the 5, so worth considering in that regard. Gargantos is one of the worst mythics in the game, and King Bloodwood is pretty underwhelming. So, yeah, Grey King, only thing worth crafting. Other than that, don't forget to go get the Staff of Fields. Of course, we've still been getting that new weapon like every single week ever since that one patch. That will eventually end. However, I think we still have like a whole dozen kingdoms, if not more, that we still haven't gotten the weapon from. I don't even think we're halfway through them yet. There's a lot of them. All those weapons are useless, but they are new. So even if you've been playing this game forever, Even since launch, it'll be new to everyone because they haven't rotated around yet, unless you bought them off of one of those $5 packs, which wouldn't really be that worth it, but some people might have just to get it early. But yeah, pretty easy craft. Other than that, nothing particularly good in Soulforge this week. However, it is worth noting that Doomed Chronicles will probably be pretty good for the event, given that it has skull spam. If I'm not mistaken, it is the only option that you can choose that has skull spam for this event. And unfortunately, it's the highest rarity one and the most expensive one. But if you picked it up in the past, you would already have it. However, if you have to go out of your way to craft it, it is pretty expensive, costing 900 diamonds and 2,200 purple things and 10 celestials. 60,000 souls shouldn't be too bad, though. But it does a little bit of scattered damage. +4 per tempering, though you're likely going to keep it at base tempering level because upgrading it's not really that worth it. And then it creates a mix of 6 purple and skulls, for every purple enemy. So if you're up against a bunch of purple enemies, this will end up getting a lot of additional value, and you could end up getting a pretty big skull spam. You would need to have at least a few of them onto the opposing team, though, but it would still be able to actually supply you with skulls, which is pretty much the only thing that will be able to do so, based on the options that we have. You could also maybe use like a Skull Storm off a hero. There are options for that, as far as ones that end up starting with one, particularly Doom Skull Storms. However you want to go about it, skulls are pretty much the main orientation of the way that you want to win during the event. So whatever ways you can kind of get more skulls onto the board are favorable. Even just board clearing can end up being good. You don't necessarily need to use something that actually has skulls. Simply like a Herdmaster, Ragnagord, something like that clears the board will also be effective to try to cycle skulls. And if you really want to, there's one that does Divinian Field bonus. It is the Rosebow does Divinian Fields bonus, and given that you're restricted to Divinian Fields for the event week, while this thing isn't normally used, it might be useful this week for the event if you want to try building around it. So worth considering in that regard. But overall, pretty lackluster weapons that you won't really use beyond this week. However, some of them do help with the World Lore event, if nothing else. Anyways, did I miss anything? Other than that, let's go into PvP and just kind of show the teams that we have built for everything. So, World Lore event for Skulls. This basically is completely centered around let's kill everything with Titan. It has a little bit of additional skull spam, as I mentioned with the book. For every purple, we end up doing more skulls onto the board. We have Ragnagord here for board clear, as that's a good way to get skulls. Herdmaster here as well for the same reason, to try to get skulls. And Orion's here mostly because since we're so oriented to skulls, we can use Orion's Herald to summon an Orion. He has a 75% chance that he will do the Orion itself that he summons will hit their HP value. So even if you weren't going to be able to one-shot them with a skull, you'd be able to one-shot them with that. Orion also has a Hunter's Mark attached to him, so that does stack entirely with it. So he could potentially do 2 times damage plus all the additional skull damage that you have from the metals, and then do it directly 2 HP. So he has a lot of potential to do a lot of damage. It's a good backup to make sure you don't lose any of these battles. He also has a little bit of an HP gain, which of course will just make you a little bit more survivable. However, you're going to be holding his ability entirely until your first slot or something dies, and then replace it with an Orion. And more likely than not, it would end up being your first slot. And you just use your board clears to constantly keep trying to cycle for skulls. And that's pretty much the whole premise of this team. The other one you kind of got to see in the other thing. However, this uses the Wild Knight. He is one of the tankiest cheap things you can get. He is a epic, however, he's an epic from a faction. He's from the Wild Court faction, so if you just throw some Chaos Shards there, you'll be able to go get him, and then throw that at the event. He explodes a gem and then gains a bunch of life and attack. However, most importantly, and it's also boosted by green, so even in early game, he gets a bit of boost ratio, which will help you. However, the most important fact about this is that he does that combined with a gain of barrier. Having that bit of board control, plus a life and attack gain, plus the boost ratio, plus a barrier, is pretty good value. And he even has a base value of 33% score reduction, and if they poke you with a skull, you get to Hunter's Mark them for that double damage, which does stack entirely with all the bonuses from the tokens for the event. So definitely a really strong option to consider. Oh, and he has 10% extra stats this week. So he has a lot of things going for him. Other than that, Staff of Visions basically just to buff him up. I specifically chose Staff of Visions as it's the most viable weapon that you don't have to go out of your way to craft something. You can get this weapon 100% for free just by getting 250 wins on Oracle Hero class. You would, of course, have to go out of your way to go get 250 wins on Oracle Hero class. However, running a low-level Explorer with like a Rowan quick kill with Leprechaun, you can do that in like 2 hours or less if you haven't even started on it. So worth considering. Even from an early game perspective, you could probably still get it done in 3 hours with similar teams. So it's worth considering getting this week if you need a weapon to assist you and you don't want to have to go out of your way to craft one. You can get this one for free. Simply use it to buff up your Wild Knight or whatever else you want to buff up. You could literally even just have it buff up your own hero if that's the most viable thing you have, and run that for it. Herdmaster here is for the board clear again, of course. It also has cleanse if you end up needing it for anything, which is a pretty nice thing because I believe there is a bit of web and a few other stats effects that you do have to deal with. So having that can be pretty useful. And other than that, Orion's Herald is here for the same exact reason as before. Not only is it a common, so it's really easy to obtain, but he also summons a legend. And if you happen to have that legend traded, he does have a 75% chance to do true damage with his skulls, which will allow you to essentially do double damage on top of that. And it stacks with Hunter's Mark, and it stacks with the tokens. So you'd be able to get a lot of damage out of that summon. And then you just keep using the Staff of Vision to buff it up, and it can give you a random stat, which includes attack, and yeah, that would obviously be very helpful. Or it'll just give durability, or it'll give magic, all of which would be useful for pretty much anything that you end up using it on there. Anyways, faction, we got Primal Rift for Tuesday. It is a green-purple restriction, though of course you can use any weapon color for this event. Here we're using our Scare Shield Rowan Double Leprechaun. Basically, you just keep spamming Leprechauns. Cast our Scare Shield to Rowan, cast Rowan, win. That's basically the premise of this team. Works out really well, and it can run the entire thing from 20 all the way to 500. So worth considering. One other option, if you really want to go deep, is use Mang with Skull Spam. However, I figured I'd show one that works the entire time. Other than that, Pure Faction, you generally just run Spam Alderfather. Your first slot doesn't really even matter too much what it is. You actually want to kill your first slot. The main reason for that is the main troop that you actually want to use is actually not any of the 4 Delve troops. That might sound weird when doing a Pure Faction. However, the main troop you're going to be using is actually Trent. Trent is summoned off of this Alderfather, and it's actually not from the faction itself, so you can't start it in your team because your starting team has to be Pure Faction for it to count as Pure Faction. However, it doesn't have to end as Pure Faction for it to count as Pure Faction. It only checks it at the beginning, all the way at the beginning of the delve. As long as at the very start you set your team to Pure Faction, it'll count as a Pure Faction win. So even if you finish the final battle with a Trent, which is not from the faction, it will still count as Pure Faction if you started as Pure Faction on the very first battle. For that reason, you basically kill your first slot, summon a Trent. Trent removes all brown and gains a bunch of armor and attack, and you basically use him to carry the entire delve. That is basically the whole premise, is you get Trent in first slot, you Alderfather Skull Spam from behind it, you get some entangles as well off of whenever you take purple, and you just carry everything with Trent in first slot. And that's all you have to do. And then Trent just wins you the entire delve, and then you win. Just Trent, Alderfather feeding Skull Spam to Trent is the whole premise of this delve as far as when you do Pure Faction. It's actually a decently easy delve, especially with potions, mostly because you have summon. Any delve that you have summon tends to be pretty good. The only annoying part about this is when you keep getting green golem when you're trying to summon a Trent, so that's kind of annoying. However, once you get the Trent rolling, you pretty much auto win very easily. So yeah, pretty easy Pure Faction overall. Other than that, Oracle class, you basically just want to use a bunch of Herdmasters into a weapon. You can also use basically anything else with triple link into a weapon. Pretty straightforward. Just go for a big foil hit, clear them out, get your free 25 gems, move on. I just like showing this with Dawnbringer, as it's pretty much the only thing Dawnbringer is truly viable and meta for these days, is quickly killing through the class events. So might as well give it its time to shine. And other than that, as far as Orrery is concerned, I might as well actually do a battle with it. I haven't actually messed with it too much yet. This is actually an old meta team, so I figured we use it for this. Mercy used to be used a lot more in the past. Still pretty viable for a couple things, however, not as viable as it used to be, but still pretty good. Nonetheless, this is a bit of an old meta team with Gorgoltha. Gorgoltha used to be used so much, especially when explosions used to do 100% and even 70%. Now they only down to 50%, so quite a bit less value there. However, it is still pretty good. We end up having a yellow-purple storm for a lot of this time. It does switch to a red storm for a single turn when we do get a kill. However, as soon as our turn rolls back over, it will go back to a yellow-purple. And basically, this helps get Mercy alignment. It also helps whenever we go cast with a full AoE off the other thing. And basically, it just does a bunch of constant chip damage. We could try getting some kind of weird alignment here. I don't believe we have anything off of Guaranteed, though we could try for one off of Cascade or something if we truly wanted to. Like right here, we can actually get some yellow and just try for a sky yellow to land right there. We unfortunately got a purple instead, but yeah, he's pretty underwhelming as far as his damage. I really wish he didn't have half magic. He would actually probably been viable if it wasn't for that. But he just does too little damage later in the game otherwise. If you just started a game recently and you can actually pull off getting this guy, though, he's possibly worth considering, as his boost ratio earlier on in the game is going to be pretty solid, but later in the game, it just makes his damage way too underwhelming compared to anything else that does full AoE to all enemies, so not really going to be seen that often, unfortunately. So unfortunately, again, we actually don't have Mercy as far as unfortunate things, so we don't have any Mercy alignment. Now we do, and now we don't. Wait, do we really not have a Mercy alignment with this board? That is pretty insane. Well, we'll just have to go for a little bit of poke then. I'm actually rather surprised when the whole premises of this team is to try to obviously get Mercy alignment almost constantly. But apparently a yellow-purple storm is not enough to guarantee that for us. We'll just take the skull and just win out the battle. But that's pretty much that thing. Also, if you're looking to get event keys, especially earlier on in the game, but even at any point. Don't forget, you can buy 10 per week. I actually didn't do mine, so I can actually show them right now. If you go under your resources, this is always here underneath the resources all the way to the left. If you end up, if you haven't bought in your 10 yet for the week, for only 1,800 glory, which is pretty cheap for you. Well, you get 20 treasure maps, 1,000 souls, 5,000 gold, but most importantly, 10 event keys. The 10 event keys alone is worth the transaction. Plus, you'll get a bunch of maps if you're still at the point in the game where you actually still need maps. So really worth considering. Especially earlier on in the game when you actually need these things. But the event keys alone is worth the 1,800 glory conversion rate. And there you go. There you have 10 event keys. Plus, I think you needed one for the first campaign task anyways, which we actually already had. You actually needed 2 of them. We will be going over this tonight at our normal nightly stream right at the beginning. We'll cycle through all these, and then we'll go do the arena run, and that's pretty much the plan for the rest of today. Anyways, guys, if you still have any other questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. I hope you all have a wonderful Halloween week, and I will catch you guys later. Thank you all so much for watching. Goodbye, everyone.